In this video, I'm going to teach you how to establish and develop a family plan for using Meshtastic in peace and emergency time. By the end of this video, I will also show you how you can download this family-friendly version of a Meshtastic plan to execute for your own family. Most of you will probably have already played around with some Meshtastic devices and have a bit of fun with it. Now, bear in mind when you have a device, it's basically a hardware. Knowing how to use the device is wonderful, but imagine if you have a plan in mind, a proper plan that you can execute for your own family. It becomes a very powerful preparedness, whether in peace or emergency time. And that is why I'm going to teach you in this video to establish a proper plan for implementing Meshtastic use for your family. So some of you may have heard of this idea of PACE. PACE is basically, it means primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency planning for communications, usually used by organization, large organization, to make sure that individuals within an organization can still contact each other during critical situation or emergency. Now, we are not going to do that. We are going to do a condensed version that works for a small family of 4 to 5 or 7 people without being weighed down or stressed by all the details of a large organization. So what we are going to do is we are going to do a layer approach. So PACE is basically a layer approach. Your first layer is also called a primary mode, a primary communication mode. This is your family primary or preferred method of communication under normal, peaceful circumstances. You need to identify what are those and be prepared at the same time. This could include landlines, emails, and most common for families is that you will WhatsApp each other, use instant messaging like WeChat or Telegram, depending on your family preferred messaging platform. What is important is that you should learn to remember or at least list down all your family member phone contact number. Most in modern situation, we usually don't bother because we store them as a contact on our phone. But what if you lost your phone, or what if somebody took away your phone? You still want to have some way to contact your family members, right? And that is why in the Word document, which I'll give you a link later to download, in the Word document, it basically is a PACE plan, Meshtastic family-friendly version. So in the primary mode, I have listed down a table where you can key in the name of all your family members as well as their mobile or landline contact information. So you should modify this column and fill up accordingly. And then I want you to print out a copy, and you can laminate this or put this in a plastic folder so that everybody have a copy. So even in the case that somebody lost their phone and they want to contact their family members, they can refer to this list and use somebody else's phone to call you. And that's important for maintaining contact, right? So next, in the alternate layer, which is when your primary layer fail, you need to swap quickly into the next alternate layer mode of communication. You can't send messages out using your smartphone, or you can't call somebody using your smartphone due to for example, the cell tower no longer become available. Then you fall back on your alternate, and in this video I'm going to focus on Meshtastic devices. Of course, some of you may have things like ham radio and satellite phone, but in this situation I'm going to focus on Meshtastic devices for a small family starting out with a lower budget. So with a Meshtastic device, please make sure that every family member have a Meshtastic device. You can start with a more affordable Heltec V3 for a start. Don't have to go for an expensive unit. Have at least spare batteries or power bank that can last 2 to 3 days. These are usually quite affordable. You can get at least one for each family member. It's important to know that this will have more flexibility because you can charge not just Meshtastic devices, you can also charge a smartphone if required. Whereas some of your Meshtastic devices are using the 18650 batteries, that can be, of course, easily replaced in and out if needed, but they must be fully charged beforehand. So in the Word document that you download under the alternate area, you'll see this table that I created for you. So what you should do is that you should fill in this with your own, like the name of the family member. And within the Meshtastic app, what is the short name, the long name, and the node user ID of that family member's device. Now, remember that the short and long name can be changed by the user as long as they can set it on the phone connected to their mesh device. They can change it. So this is changeable. However, the node user ID, this is not changeable. So it's still important to know this. So in your Meshtastic device, you'll be able to check the long name and the short name by scrolling down to user. So when you tap on user, you'll be able to see the short and long name. To check the node ID, simply go to your nodes list and click on the one that represents you. So tap on it, and then you'll be able to see the node ID. In the next layer, which is contingency, this is definitely more robust, and this layer will be deployed if the first two layers fail. For example, if you try to send messages out using your smartphone, WeChat, WhatsApp, it doesn't get through. You try to send out messages using your Meshtastic device and it doesn't seem to get through. Then we have to fall back on the third layer. In the contingency layer, I would recommend that you look at improving the signal connection between your mesh nodes, because sometimes it may be disrupted previously, but there are ways to get around it. So I'm going to teach you how to do it. Meshtastic device radio signals can be interrupted just as with any other form of wireless communication. So we want to look at the possible causes of disruption and we want to minimize them as much as possible. So mesh radio signals can be interrupted or disrupted by physical obstructions such as large buildings, dense forests, trees, vegetation. It can also be weakened because the distance between you and your family member are further apart. Let's say you have many miles or kilometers apart, so your distance are further, the radio signal can be the connection can be weaker. Or it can be interference from other devices that are either in around your locations or by the the power stations. So, or it can be because of weather condition. Now in this video, I'm going to focus on things that we can control. So I'm going to focus on the first two only. We want to basically identify areas around your location, your locality, where the physical obstructions are lesser or the distance are closer. So what you should do is you should use Google Map first to find a map for your local area, which is around your house, your family house, family member's house. So I want you to sort of use Google Map and look around. Look around for locations that are either higher in altitude, because when it's higher, your Meshtastic nodes can get better line of sight with your family members' nodes and establish a better connection. Or where here you see all the physical buildings, right? So you want to look for areas where the physical buildings are lesser, then you have less obstruction. So I'm just giving an example. In your situation, you should learn to look at your own map, okay? So the whole idea is you want to identify location for your family member so that in a case that they can't connect to you, they can't message you, they can move closer to this location. So for example, this one of the location could be a park, because park for example, if this park doesn't have a lot of dense vegetation but just a lot of grass, that means you have open line outside, open spaces, the radio signals can travel without getting much interruption. And let's say you have a family member house here, or you have another shop here belong to one of the family member. If this tree can get good line of sight, that means you can look at the place without much interruption. It's quite open area, you get better signal connection. So if your family members are different at different location, at their school, at the university, at the restaurant, what they can do is that they can at least know where to move closer. They can move towards closer to this direction or go to that location. They can move closer. And when they're closer, you get a better line of sight and better mesh connection. Then you can message each other easier. So just an example, in real life, your map could be much larger and the distance between the locations could be further. All right. I've put here in under contingency. You can delete this map and paste in your own, and then you can put in the name of the location and key in the full address for this location so that every family member know exactly where this is. Now we're going to move on to the last, which is I think one of the most important is the emergency layer. The emergency layer is the most resilient, most critical. Of course, for organization, it can involve protocol like using coded messages, encrypted communication, and securing comms hubs in secure location. Now, this is a bit more complex. So for the family unit, I'm going to concise it down to make it easier to implement. So I will focus more on the idea of emergency situation. What are some of the things you need to take note when you use your Meshtastic device? Now, remember in emergency, many people who are on the mesh network, sometimes they feel very compelled to message or communicate out to the masses or to their family members. So if this represents your local mesh network and this is you, this is your neighbor, this is the fire department, this is the school, so everybody may be trying to message out at the same time. However, you must remember that Meshtastic network is built on the idea of interconnectedness and shared traffic. So the bandwidth, there is a limit to it. If everybody jump onto the network and message out tons and tons of messages all at the same time, you're going to jam up the network. So it's important that you take note of two things. You need to learn to be able to have ability to maintain power on your devices, and second is you do not want to create a jam on the mesh network. So first, let's focus on the power. In an emergency situation, your family should have some backup plans on how to power your Meshtastic device. If you have the hardware but the battery ran out after 2 days, it's not going to help you in any way. So you should have at least some modes of solar power bank, so you can use this solar panel to charge the battery inside the power bank, and the battery inside the power bank can power your Meshtastic devices. So this will be very, very helpful, especially if the power grid is down. You can still use the direct sunlight to charge your batteries. The normal power bank is going to only provide for a limited amount of time unless it can be dependent on a portable solar unit that is larger. This unit can cost a few hundred USD to above a few thousand depending on the capacity of the battery and its features. But this can be portable, it can be placed at your house, or if your family decided to drive out to another location, it can be brought along with you easily. So this can be plugged into your Meshtastic device to charge up, or it can be plugged to a power bank to charge up, and then the person can carry it around. So it becomes very, very portable. For some of you, your Meshtastic device may be running on a 18650 batteries. If you have a couple of box of spare fully charged batteries, it will help you also. Okay, but if your family doesn't have a lot of budget, I think it's okay to just fall back on the solar power bank. They are usually more affordable. You can get for 15 to 20 plus USD depending on brand and functions. Now, I want to focus on next is if during emergency or natural disaster or the grid is down, everybody, if you're in a panic mode, is not good. You need to remain calm to maintain a sound mind to communicate to your family members whenever you can. So one of the things you must monitor on your Meshtastic device screen is check the channel utilization. So you see CHUTIL followed by a percentage number. This number will range from 0 to 100%. And this basically reflects the available bandwidth on the Meshtastic network. So imagine with me, the Meshtastic bandwidth is like a road, and the road have people traveling back and forth on cars. If there is too many cars traveling in the road at the same time, the traffic becomes slow or interrupted. So the idea is almost similar to a Meshtastic network. There is a limited bandwidth, like a limited space on the road. If everybody send out like 2,000 people send out messages more at the same time in your local town, it might push up the channel utilization high. Like if it reach 50% and above, it means that the bandwidth is now more limited. If you try to send out messages, you can try, but sometimes if it may not get through to the other party, it may not be received by the other party. Now, what happened is that if this is an emergency layer, you want to focus on key critical information to be sent out. So you want to make sure important information get received and not so important messages can be delayed. So this is what I highly encourage users to do in emergency situation. If you are typing messages on your mesh device to send out, be very, very intentional. Keep your messages concise for specific purposes. Keep it short, straight to the point, like sharing emergency updates, conducting health and welfare checks, or coordinating resources like food, water, shelter, etc. Anything else that are not critical, maybe don't send it out. Don't send it out, especially if the channel utilization the numbers are getting too high. Please wait to send it out. Let me give an example. For example, there is a tornado, there's a natural disaster that took place, and you and your partner are injured, but you're at the home basement, you're okay. So you may be sending out to another family member like your brother. So you say, me and John are at the home basement. We have some injuries, but okay, food for 7 days. So this is what we call intentional messages, short, concise. Now, if your messages are not concise, it may look something like that on the right-hand side. So let's compare the two. Right-hand side, you may type, me and John are now at home basement. I got leg injuries and John fractured his arm. My niece is a nurse and attended to us. Then you send out one more message. We feel okay, got some canned food, rice, bottled water to last us 7 days, just add some food. Now the messages by themselves are not wrong, they're genuine, they're trying to convey important information to another family member. So I'm not saying that the message is wrong, but it's now spread over 2 messages with more characters going into the mesh network. Now, if the channel utilization percentage are very high, the mesh network is getting very busy, do consider sending a more concise message on the left instead. So you're basically trying to summarize the right-hand side info down into concise 3-liners. Me and John at home, some injuries are okay, food for 7 days, because you're just trying to tell your family member things are fine. Now, let's compare to another message that is more critical, more urgent, and life-threatening. If one of your neighbors is trying to send this out at the same time as you, and her information is life-threatening. For example, she may say, Grandpa's oxygen tank is low, last another 6 hours. Can you please go to the storage and retrieve 2 cylinders of oxygen and send it over to Grandpa's place? Now, this information is critical because if it doesn't get through to the recipient on the mesh network, somebody may enter into a life-threatening situation or may die. So you want this if you're looking at the macro perspective, you want these messages to get through successfully compared to this one, right? Both are, of course, important information because it belongs to a family member, but one is more life-threatening. So in this situation, in an emergency setting where the channel utilization percentage are very high, anything not critical, hold on first. Other people in the background, could be fire responders, could be family member whose life is threatened. You want their message to get through. Okay, so the other thing to consider is in an emergency situation, in order not to waste unnecessary battery life, and you still want to maintain some level of contact with family members, we recommend that you set a messaging schedule, a fixed schedule where every family member can switch on the device to contact each other and conserve the battery. So I'm going to share an example. So in the Word document that you download, you can go to the last page where I gave you some guidelines, okay? Like, for example, the channel utilization percentage, what it means, messaging content, keep it concise, and then here I put the messaging schedule. Feel free to change the timing according to what you deem best for your family. You can put it at 3 hours intervals, 6 hours intervals. Some people may recommend, like, when they turn on the device at 9 a.m., they keep it on for 15 minutes and then they shut it off. I leave it to you to decide. The whole idea is basically battery conservation and not jamming up the network, especially if it's not critical information you can afford to wait. So let me give an example of a scheduled message. For example, if your family decide 9 a.m., 3 p.m., 9 p.m., and 3 a.m. as your messaging schedule. So you may turn on your device at 9 a.m. and send out a message to your family member like, all of us are okay. Slight earthquake aftershock. We'll check in with you again at 3 p.m. So that's the next schedule, next time in the schedule. So this is what we call a time scheduled messaging. So in my next video, I'm going to show you how to make Meshtastic device with larger screen so that it will benefit especially anyone in your family that doesn't have very good eyesight or find the current Meshtastic screen too small. I'll teach you how to do it. Also download the Word document for the pace plan in the video description below.